Alrighty, in this video what we're going to do is we are going to put together some of the basic styling that we're going to use throughout this application, including styling the app container itself. I know everybody's most favorite thing to do is to write CSS, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off by creating a file under my client directory, and I'm going to call it variables. Oh, come on. Oh, this is going to be fun. Not really. So we have a bunch of variables that we're going to be using throughout the application. This variables.scss file is going to contain our variables as well as mixins that we will use throughout this project. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start off with our color background. That's going to be EA. We'll do a color primary. If you've taken my courses before, you know my favorite blue color, which I stole directly from Visual Studio Code, which is 2196 F3. And we have our color primary text, which is going to be just white. Then we have our color bad, which is going to be our FF2342. And yes, I'm putting all these variables here in this one video so we don't have to continuously type out all these hash values. Color bad text is going to be, again, white. We'll have our color good, which will be a green color, which will be, let's see, 57 CB44. And our color good text, which will also be white. We'll have our color neutral, which will be D2, 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 so a light gray. And then our color neutral text, which will be black. We'll have our color text, which will be 484848. And our color section border, which will be C2, C2. And then we'll have our width of our card, which will be 160 pixels. Our height of our cards, which will be 170 pixels. Then we're also going to do our card scale factor, which will be 0.8. Then after that, we have a couple more colors. Then we'll be done. Our raised color is going to be F5, F5. I can type good. And then we will have our header font size, which will be 14 pixels. And those are our variables. We shouldn't have to type in any or many additional hash values throughout the rest of this course, which will make me happy. So if you want to pause the screen on this, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. So now we'll do our mixin. So I'm going to do a mixin user select none. Mixins are just, if you've never used SASS before, mixins are not rules in and of themselves. They allow us to write reusable CSS. So we're going to do user select none, and I am going to prefix all of these. So I'll say WebKit user select none. I'll do -moz user select none. I'll do -ms user select none, and then I'll do user-select none. So user select none means that you can't highlight text, and it'll be very valuable for our cards, so we don't accidentally highlight the cards as we click on them or double click on them. It makes the UI feel a lot more solid. But of course you can use this mixin wherever you feel necessary. Next up, we'll do a mixin for section. So we'll have a lot of these sections in this series, and a section is going to have a border of 2 pixels solid color section border and a border radius of 3 pixels. Then if the section has a H1 element directly underneath it, we'll set the font weight to normal, the font size to header font size, the margin to 0, the padding to 5 pixels up and down, 10 pixels side by side, and the background to color section border, and then a color of black. Then, if it has a body element underneath it, we're going to give the body a padding of 10 pixels and a padding top of 0. All right, we're almost done with our mixins. We have 2 more to go, and they'll be simple. We're going to do a mixin Unlistify. So very often in web development, we create ULs and OLs, ordered lists and unordered lists, but we don't want them to render with those, with the margins and the paddings and the markers. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create an Unlistify, which will set the margin to 0, the padding to 0, the list style to none, and then for all immediate LIs underneath it, the margin will be 0 and the padding will be 0. Because I do that all the time, I figured making it a list mixin would be justified. And then we'll do a mixin raised, which will give it a kind of raised look to it. And for raised, we'll give it a background of, not surprisingly, color raised. We'll give it a box shadow of 2px down, 2px to the right, 3px wide, and then an RGBA of 0.1, so a very slight box shadow. A border radius of 3 pixels, a border of 1 pixel solid white, a border right of none, and a border bottom of none. And the last mixin, we're actually only going to use in one particular place, but I threw it in the variables anyway because it is a mixin and could potentially be useful elsewhere. And so we won't be using this mixin for a while, but we might as well get it out of the way so we don't have to continuously jump back into this file. And it's going to be divider. Divider is going to have a border radius of 3 pixels, a background of color section border. We're going to give it a transition of background, 500 milliseconds. Then I'm going to do cubic Bezier, and I'm going to do this default that comes with Visual Studio Code that's fantastic for animations. The ease out circular based off a half circle. So if you look at these values, 0.075, comma 0.82, comma 0.165, comma 1. And that'll give it a really nice, as it transitions the background color, it'll look really cool. We'll give it a text align of center and a padding of 5 pixels up and down, 0 left and right. And then we'll say if it has the isActive flag on it, give it a background of color primary and a color of color primary text. And then also, if it has an I element underneath it, give it a margin of 0 up and down and 5 left and right. And that's if in a divider you have a icon from Font Awesome, I want the icons to be separated by 5 pixels. Anyway, I'll scroll down this file one more time, unless you guys just cheated and grabbed this file from the assets. And with that, we are ready to style our site-wide our site-wide styles. Now this will be very short. So I'm going to come in here to client.scss, and the first thing I'm going to do is up here at the top, I'm going to import our variables. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to nuke all these other things that we had in there previously. I'm going to give HTML and body a height of 100 pixels because this will be a full screen application. We will be using Flexbox for it. A margin of 0 and a padding of 0. For the body, I'm going to give it a background of color background, a color of color text, a font family of just general sans serif fonts, Arial, Helvetica, and default sans serif, and a font size of 12 pixels. I'm going to give the mount node a height of 100 pixels or 100%. So the mount node, of course, is where the application is mounted to, and that's about it. So if I do all that, and I come back to our page, what we should see is this. So we do have that scroll bar issue, and that's going to be probably caused by our by something that will be fixed momentarily. Because of the margin of our lobby sidebar, because it's a paragraph tag, but we're going to fix that here in a sec. So now that we have our client SCSS styled, let's jump into our app.css and style out our sidebars and our main. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import variables. Then I'm going to say C application. Now the C prefix I use to denote a component. So C application is, since it's a top level component, all of our components, if they need to be styled, will be prefixed by C-something. I'm not using some of the CSS naming conventions that you might have seen with the double dashes and double underscores and that fun stuff. I'm going to keep things simple, even though I do recommend looking into alternative ways to name your styles. But I'll leave both these files open, actually, while we go ahead and do this, so you can see both the markup and the styles as I write them. If I had more screen space, I would also show you guys the Chrome window, but you'll be able to see that on your end. First of all, the application is going to have a height of 100% and an overflow of hidden, and that should that removes that scroll bar. Then we'll style inner. Inner is going to have a display of flex, a height of 100%, a padding of 10, and a box sizing of border box, so that the padding doesn't push the outside of the element, and a flex direction of row. So we're styling the sidebar and the main to be side by side from each other, even though the flex direction of row is actually the default. I don't know why I put that in there. Then I'm going to say inner sidebar, and I'm going to include section. I'm going to give it a width of 200 pixels, which I could put into a variable, but I'm lazy. A display of flex, a flex of none, and a flex direction of column. So the flex of none will make sure that the sidebar doesn't stretch or contract at all. Then inside of this, I'm going to put something that we're not going to use quite yet, but we will here soon. And that is m-sidebar-buttons with a margin of 0, a margin of 0, 10px, a flex of none, and then an m-button of width 100%, display block, margin of 10px up and down, 0px left and right. I know this isn't the most exciting thing for you guys to do at the moment, but this will take care of a lot of the styles that we have to deal with later. Anyway, now you should be seeing something close to this, where we have the main on the right-hand side, and we have the lobby sidebar on the left-hand side. So all accomplished without using any floats, because Flexbox is awesome like that. So now let's go ahead and style our inner main. So I'm going to come down here to the first level of indentation and do direct descendant inner, direct descendant main, and I'm going to say flex grow is 1, so that it'll go up and it'll take up the remaining horizontal space. I'm going to give it a margin left of 10 pixels, a position of relative, that'll become important later, a display of flex boxes all the way down, and a flex direction of column, because we're going to be stacking our things in our main container up and down on top of each other. And then I'm going to say, if there's ever a div inside of main, I'm going to give it a flex grow of 1, a display of flex, and a flex direction column. All of the things that are going to go into the main component are going to start off with just an unclassed div. And we want that to have a flex grow of 1, so it takes up all the space. And then we want to repeat the display flex and the flex direction. And that's it for our app.css. So if we look at the page now, we see it's actually looking pretty good. So coming back over here, we can scroll up and then scroll down if you guys want to pause and take a look at it. Unless you guys, again, cheated and grabbed these CSS files yourself. I know writing CSS like this isn't the most exciting thing, but whatever. But I think that pretty much wraps up the video, wraps up what I wanted to do here. Also make sure that if you inspect your main element, that it is indeed stretching for to take up the remaining horizontal space and take up the remaining vertical space. And this is how we achieve a full screen application without using any nasty JavaScript hacks or weird floating things in CSS. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next video, where hopefully we'll be doing something more exciting.